Oliver living. After being told to clean his cell and refusing, the 51-year-old inmate Carl Taylor was beaten to death by correctional officer Bruce Tucker and had his death swept under the rug by numerous prison officials. We all have a conception of life in prison. However, many of us do not know the abuse and mistreatment that goes on in life behind bars. The United States Bureau of Prisons should have a reform of the prison system to address the abuse within. First, I will talk about the violence and mental abuse that goes on within. And secondly, I will address the solutions that have already been implemented and future solutions that will help improve prisoners' lives. Prisoners are in prison for a reason. However, that does not mean they should be subject to abuse. Prisoners are in a situation unlike any other. They are forced to live in an environment that constantly puts them down while encouraging bad behavior. Our prison system was originally formed as a reformation for those inside. However, that goal was dropped in the 1970s when Nixon took office. Our current system is aimed at punishment of bad behavior while not encouraging good behavior. Punishments can range from a variety of things. Oftentimes it is physical or beatings from guards. The physical punishment often has a mental toll to go with it. According to Tom Robbins, who has a bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Washington, in a publication for the criminal rights group, the Marshall Project, published February 2020, stated that Carl Taylor was just one of the 10,000 prisoners within the New York State Penitentiary with mental health issues who do not receive the help they need. Solitary confinement is when a prisoner is locked in a cell alone with no social interaction besides the retrieval and giving of food. Solitary confinement is dangerous on its own, but when combined with the mentally ill, it can be torturous. Carl Taylor spent half of his 15 years that he served of his 26-year sentence in solitary confinement. However, that is not where the mental abuse of Carl Taylor ended. He was denied treatment for his mental issues and a court-ordered visit to the psychiatric hospital. When he asked to go to the psych wing, he was met with a wooden baton and died shortly after. Sadly, the abuse for most inmates does not end there. Sexual assault is a growing issue in the prison system. Prisoners are a very at-risk group due to the power the guards hold above them. Ilana M. Stern, who has a JD from the University of Pennsylvania, stated in the University of Pennsylvania Law Review in 2019 that despite numerous laws being in place, sexual assault and abuse against male and female inmates by guards is still on the rise, and more than half the cases go unreported. Even when reported, oftentimes nothing happens. There is a fear of reporting because of the power the guards hold above them and fear of repercussions. Finally, I would like to talk about the most important issue in our prison systems: violence. Brian Stevenson, a defense lawyer in Alabama, in a publication for the Equal Justice Initiative, published December 2018, stating that mortality rates across the nation have been rapidly increasing, with Alabama State Penitentiary seeing a 600% increase from 2001. In Alabama state prisons, the average mortality rate is 65 dead to 1,000 living. In our terms, that would be almost 7 dead per per every 100. 7 of our classmates dead per every 100. The abuse and violence comes from inmates, but also guards. As I've said before, Bruce Tucker murdered Carl Taylor and has had a history of violence to other inmates. Inmates were scared of Bruce Tucker because of his history, and other guards did nothing about it because they didn't have to. Correctional officers, however, face their own challenges when in the penitentiary system. Dr. Craig Haney, a psychology professor at the Santa Cruz University in California, stated in the Journal of American Public Health, published January 2020, stated that correctional officers and employees working in California state prisons have elevated rates of chronic stress, health issues, and an increased likelihood of self-harm. They face these reasons for understaffing. There is an Alabama state prison with 1,200 guards, 1,200 inmates, and only 8 guards to patrol. That encourages violence amongst prisoners as they have no repercussions for their actions. Now I would like to talk about the possible solutions we have, as well as the solutions already implemented by our government. The First Step Act is a bill proposed by Representative Doug Collins, who proposed it, or who has a bachelor's degree in political science from Georgia State University, introduced Public Law 115-391, the First Step Act, into the House of Representatives in May of 2020. The bill will aim to improve general living conditions for inmates with less crowded prisons and improved amenities such as kitchens. The bill will also aim to move prisoners to prisons located close to their primary residence. The First Step Act also has an interest in reducing recidivism, or the act of prisoners committing the same crime again and ending back in jail. However, I don't think that should be enough. The United States Bureau of Prisons should also introduce a mental health awareness within prisons to help those like Carl Taylor who suffered tragic deaths, as well as help clean amenities and give meaningful and fulfilling jobs to inmates to provide free time as well as good time credit. First, I talked about the violence within our prison system, while finally I talked about the possible solutions and solutions we already have in place. The United States Bureau of Prisons should reform the prison system to address the abuse and violence within. Though none of us have been in prison, we should know it is torturous for those inside and